Hi, I am Lawful, and this is going to be my attempt to tell my entire story as a series, recording specifically my own ET contact when this began. Um, I really appreciate the support and anyone who is listening. I really appreciate this. This is I became aware of the contact, fully aware, in 2012. Previous to that, I had an entire lifetime of very strange, unusual experiences as a child that I was not able to process, and so they were just all this big collection of disjointed experiences and strange things and unusual occurrences that I had up until the point of 2012, previously attributed to spirit activity in my own life. And it was, but it was just, I wasn't aware that the spirit activity was actually also involving extraterrestrial activity. It's all connected. I just want to say this, first of all. The spirit world is the outer dimensional world, and there are many, many, many types of people out there, and here too. Nothing to be afraid of. Some of the things that happened to me, what I call my pre-awakening period prior to 2012, were very, very shocking to go through, and you could say psychologically traumatic in certain ways. They were also liberating and reality shifting completely. Um, it was a process. It's not an easy process. It's a process that I believe everyone who has a spirit in his life has connection outside and can go through this process to recover and understand what's going on. Okay, so let's get the boring stuff out of the way first. My childhood. Do I really want to go there? No, but it's a part of the story. So this is what this first series is going to be about. Basically, I'm just going to briefly go over all of some of the strange events that I'm very aware of happening throughout my life. Um, and I've got some notes here so that I won't wander too far. And again, back to the childhood. Okay. So I was very aware, um, for whatever reason, at I I believe I came into different pieces of awareness that I remember specifically when I was about the age of two, and between the age of 2 and 3, I remember being in a stroller, and I remember my mother and her sister. We were at a park. I believe it was somewhere in Los Angeles. There's a lot of ducks, anyway, and they were kind of aggressive. And I came into awareness, the stroller, and my mother was absolutely terrified, and her sister was, and they were screaming and running from the ducks. And I remember leaving my body. I was so terrified by my mother's terror that I left my body, and I saw this from behind myself. And that's a memory. It's an odd one, but it always stuck with me. It was very real, and it really did happen. The memories are often a foggy thing to try to go through, but there were certain things that are very clear, very childhood. That was perhaps an unusual ability. I was aware that I could leave my body because I remembered this. So, um, when I was about the age of 4, I was somewhat traumatized by different things. I wasn't happy with my body. I knew something was very wrong about I felt that something was very wrong with my inclination and this experience here. This isn't who I used to be. So about that same age, I would say, I became aware of when I would sleep, I would everything would shake. I was aware of I was able to see particles and different things that I'm not really sure if other people can see this sort of thing, but it was another unusual awareness to have as a young child. And someone would come and touch my arm and kind of rock me to sleep. Um, and there was nobody that I could see. I tried to see who this was, and I could never see who this was. It was like an invisible arm, but it was very, very comforting, very comforting. Um, I asked my mother in the bathtub, of all places. I was probably about five when I remember asking my mother who was the person that used to come and touch me and help me sleep, because my mother would get angry that I couldn't sleep and kind of shut the door and tell me to be quiet and stop having such an active imagination. And so, but there was somebody there. She said it was my grandmother, which who she had passed on at the time, and that never sat well with me. I knew it was somebody. There was somebody there, always just beyond what I could see. I remember when this was probably around the same age, about 4 or 5. For whatever reason, it was a traumatic evening. I had these absolutely beautiful pink pajamas, and we were going to my grandparents' house, and they lived kind of far. I thought the pajamas looked like I Dream of Jeannie, which was popular in television back then. And I was really excited about these, they were beautiful. And for whatever reason, my cousin had told, we got there to my grandfather's house, and my cousin said they were ugly. And my mother was more upset than I was, I think. I, I remember my mother was very, very upset again, and I was feeling her energy about this whole thing more than my own. And it was a late night drive home. I really don't remember too much about anything about that, but I remember at some point there was a very large uh, wagon wheel. It was like the wagon wheel restaurant or something. It was this huge wooden lit up sign that we passed on the way home, and I thought it was fantastic when I got to see that sign because it was so big and unusual to see a lit up wagon wheel that's about 50 feet tall. You don't get to see that every day. Um, anyway, at some point in this, I distinctly remember my mother screaming again. It's my mother's fear, telling me to put my head under the blankets. Like I was laying down in the back of a car and to put the blanket over my head and put my head down and don't look up. And um, there was a very, very bright light. And I don't remember anything else but that. A very, 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 very bright light. Unusual and this crazy fear. Mother. Was it something? Possibly. I feel that something happened time, and I'm now in a place with my contact and telepathic relationship where I can ask these questions and access the answers more or less. So many, many, many years of seeing shadows and things moving and short people walking around, shadows, shadow people, um, being told they weren't real, mother getting in trouble. And basically, I went through a very dark, depressed period of my life, and I ran away from home when I was 14 years old. And I was getting bullied in school, and I had zero support at home. So that's a whole other weird segment where things didn't really happen that I can say too much, except for I was always aware of spirits. They used to call my name and different things in different places. Eventually, I left. I think I was about 18 when I left California. I met the father of my children, who was a rainbow gathering hippie, and we hitchhiked. Well, I met him actually in Arcata, California, and we hitchhiked to Mexico for some reason. Or no, we went to Arizona first, and we traveled and lived in a backpack, and it was a really wonderful experience. I went to a couple of rainbow gatherings. I also spent a couple of very unusual nights where I had missing time. This is where I should stop this right now and get into that in the next segment, because that's a whole nother. I'm in basically 18 years old now. I you know let's just go there. I'm I maybe I can figure out how to edit this little decision making gap that I'm having here. Anyway, let's go there. Okay, so now I'm going on with my story. I'm 18 years old. I meet my kid's father. We're camping in the desert a number of different times, living in the desert during the winter, mostly in Arizona, New Mexico, mostly Arizona. And we lived in Bisbee, Arizona for a while. There was a place we used to go to that was had natural hot springs that came out of the ground. At that place, at one time, I everybody laughs at me, but in the middle of the night, nobody around, no light. I mean, this is camping by a river in the mountains, and I had gone out to use the bathroom someplace, and I saw a very, very tall rabbit, probably at least 4 feet tall. From the bottom, it was sitting, and to the tips of the ears. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, and everybody laughed at me, and I didn't know about the whole thing with rabbits at all the time, but it's just another one of those little markers along the way. The next thing that happened that was unusual was I had something was bothering my foot, and we went to the ER, and I it felt I thought that I had like stepped on cactus, and it was actually like in the side of my toe. And so, that's what I was expecting to happen. There was a slight irritated sore. And they took something out of the side of my foot that they told the doctors. The two doctors came in and they brought a petri dish and they took it away and they were laughing. And they told me that I had stepped on the eye end of a leather needle, but that did not look like a leather needle. I think I would know if I stepped it on it. And how do you step on the side of your toe on the leather needle? It wasn't a leather needle. So another little weird thing. It's building up and getting um, more unusual things are going on here. Um, the We had 2 days of missing time. My kid's father. I did regressive hypnosis with Mary Boswell about a year ago, and it turned out that, and this was verified by two other people that we were camping with, that we were missing for 2 days. What I found out through the hypnosis was that I had been taken someplace for 5 years, which and brought it, but 2 days had actually passed. That I don't even know how to process, honestly. That's it's a lot. It's huge, and it's the thing that happened at the time was we used to walk into town, and it sounds horrible to say this, but donate plasma, and they give you like $30 or something, and um, that's what we did every so many Wednesdays. I believe it was Wednesday, and we got up. We camped about 2 miles outside of Tucson, and we woke up on Wednesday, or we thought it was Wednesday, and walked into town, and everything was closed. And they told us no, that was Wednesday. And it's like, well, this is Wednesday. And then we eventually ran into two other friends, and they said, no, this is Friday, and you guys were gone. You guys weren't around. Um, they came out to check on us, and I guess, you know, I have no idea what happened to my children's father during that time. That didn't come out in any way during my hypnosis. Um, it's, but at the time, me and him, and we were looking at each other, and we did not want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk, but it was too much. That was like, how do you deal with that? Could it be? No, I would not ever allow myself to think that alien abduction was even remotely possible. That, that wasn't something that was in the scope of my reality at that time. Moving onward, that's about as my daughter. I got pregnant with my daughter right around the same time as the missing time. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, Kristalina, she has passed on, but she had a 1 in 22 million, the odds of getting this are 1 in 22 million, this type of genetic rare condition. Very, very rare. There's like 3 people on Earth that have this. And what the medical diagnosis is, you know, we finally got one. She had to go to genetic specialists at Cedar Sinai Hospital for a number of years. Nothing was evident when she was born except for that she had what they called a facial palsy on one side. She began having unusual head growth, and they assumed that she had hydrocephalus. We were living in Arkansas at the time. That's where she was born. And um, but they did a CAT scan. They didn't have that much equipment. I don't think they had MRI machines there, and the CAT scan did not show any evidence of hydrocephalus. It A short time, my maybe a year later, my second daughter was born, and I moved back to California with my 2 children from Michigan now, and I decided that it wasn't, that relationship and everything. So anyway, I moved back. I moved in with my mother, and the medical care for Christy was much better there. She went to a neurologist, and he thought she had something called Hunter-Hurler syndrome, which turned out to be an incorrect diagnosis. And she went to Dr. David Lemoyne at the Cedar Sinai Medical Center, and was diagnosed with craniopataxial dysplasia. And what it does is it's a very rare genetic. They never could really figure it out. It causes the head to grow unusually large, and the ends of the long bones, the arms and legs, begin to take on a bottle sort of shape. Okay, well, I don't want people to think because my daughter was very unusual looking. She became very unusual looking the older she got. That's why I'm saying that she was I believe, a hybrid, but I do believe she was a hybrid. I know it. There were unusual things around her the whole time. It was She was very, very different. She was very intelligent. People, because of her unusual features, they assumed that she was had some form of mental retardation, but that was not correct at all. Very special person, very strong being, and she came to Earth for a reason. And she influenced absolutely everyone that she met. My daughter. She passed on before she was, right before she turned 14. My daughter, younger daughter, Amethyst, I hope she doesn't mind if I briefly mention that she has also contributed to my understanding as she remembers seeing a very large vehicle. In fact, she called me on the phone and said one time, and this was, you know, she was maybe 12. I was living in Hawaii, and we were all living in Hawaii. And she said, Mom, I think I was abducted by aliens. And I said, yeah, that's it wasn't again within my scope of something that I would recognize, and but it's well, maybe there's a whole bunch of different things, and I always thought something about Christy, and maybe it's a possibility, and I actually did a little bit of research, and minimal. It didn't see okay, so if I believe that there's a possible alien interference in my life or something, does that mean that it's like, what does that mean? How does that change my reality? I wasn't in a place where I was in a horrible marriage actually at that time, and just wasn't able to continue working whatever that knowledge was or understanding that was trying to come forward. So I'm moving too quickly through the story, but I think that's okay. Never mind the 5-part series. We'll just do it all at once, maybe. Another very significant thing in that whole period of time was I had what I thought at the time a near death experience. This was my two children. It was right around the same. I really wonder if it wasn't maybe the same time that my daughter had the vehicle sighting, but I don't know. She was staying at my mother's house at the time, and anyway, I had what I believe to be a near death experience. I I don't know what happened, but I had gone to sleep and I found myself completely awake and aware in what certainly felt like an embodied state in a vehicle of some sort, surrounded by other human beings, and we're all wearing these white gowns, and it's foggy and it's cold, and I'm aware that this is a vehicle, but I'm thinking that I died, and I had the thought specifically that well, maybe they could take you in a vehicle someplace when you die. I guess maybe that's what happens. I don't know, but I don't want to be here. I want to be back with my children. I don't not want to be dead in a vehicle. Um, most of the people were in like a trance, like they weren't really aware that they were there. They probably weren't. There were two women that I spoke with, and they helped me tremendously calm down because I was not. I was trying everything that I could think of to wake myself up if this was a dream of some sort, and nothing was working. And they were trying to help me and say, "No, you're not. This isn't a dream. This is real. We're going. We're traveling." And at some point, I remember losing consciousness off and on, off and on. And at some point, I was taken to a table and found myself sitting down in front of what looked like a cartoon person, an absolute cartoon face, like a picture over this person's face, which was of um, Saint Peter in, I believe it was a children's book that I read or that I saw in a doctor's office, and I put all this together later on. At the time, I'm looking at a picture of Saint Peter that doesn't move. Okay, so this is going along with my whole thing about um, thinking that I was dead. And at the time that this happened, I was attending church, Christian church at the time, just trying something different for the season. And so along the lines, I suppose that would make sense. But many years, and it always did bother me that this person's face never moved. And what he did was he took my hand and did like a small, this left hand, like a small incision kind of a thing or something. There was no pain, and peeled back the skin, and I could see the fat cells in my hand. And then it was just like he pressed it close. And I mean, it sounds insane to talk about, but that's it was very real. I mean, I think I probably have something in my hand here. I'm I'm pretty sure, which is fine. Whatever. I'm fine with things now. Not to get carried off into that subject. Leaving the vehicle was it was like looking at the sun. I really thought what I was seeing was the great white light that everyone talks about when they die. So, but I was definitely not in the vehicle. I was in what seemed like space, as crazy as this sounds, with a another cartoon figure next to me. She was a Hawaiian angel from a Christmas card. Another non-moving face that's like next to me smiling, and she was very nice. But I know that's not who she really was now. I know that Saint Peter and the cartoon angel were screen images that that the other type of people use to shield me from being traumatized. It was a much more easy, even though it was odd and weird, and I think the oddness and the weirdness of the non-moving pictures, as well as the familiarity of them, actually was purposefully left there. It triggered my awareness in a different way. It uh, it all came together and made sense eventually. Anyway, back to the trip through space with the Christmas card angel. There were eggs. That they were egg shaped and they were huge and they were like they were cut out of the space and they were pink and yellow and white swirling colors. It was like outside of three-dimensional space, and they were traveling downwards in the direction that we were leaving. We were going downwards. The light was getting smaller, and I felt myself turned around, and I was in my room, and I was completely shaken, absolutely shaken. Um, I processed that as a near-death experience for a long period of time, though it was a visit, as I understand, and I'm very thankful for that. So I had another incident after that in which a very similar thing. So many years later, this the first one was in 1991. Um, the next one that happened, this was absolutely undeniably an alien UFO situation was presenting itself to me. There was no way that I could say this was a near death or this was a ghost or this was anything other than the question that had been bothering me all these years. So what happened was I was in the marriage that I talk about, and this was again right around the same time that my daughter had whatever um, she said she saw a vehicle and she didn't remember calling me. That was kind of an odd thing about that. She remembered dreaming that she called me on the phone and said, "Mom, I think I was abducted by aliens." And it was like, "No, you actually called me on the phone," which I understand now is not so unusual. But you know, anyway, I go to sleep and I wake up fully awake, and I am in some sort of again body. I can feel everything. My body's real. I can feel the surfaces. It's cold again, and I'm on some sort of a table, and I can see this black and white surface. Something hanging on the wall, and it's beginning to come into focus. And I was absolutely amazed by how strange that was. And it was like I felt almost like I was coming out of anesthesia. Well, this seems like a hospital room. Maybe I was in an accident, something happened. Um, and I'm slowly, turning around, and I sat up at some point. Um, I could see that I was like in a very small little room, and that this was not this was a spaceship. There's no other way to say it. And the door came open. There was a door that just kind of opened like this. It wasn't there, and then it was there. And three small people came out, and they were about maybe a little bit taller than that, and they were covered head to toe, or they were. When I first saw them, they looked like robots of aliens. They had big eyes, the classic gray. They were the classic gray beings. Their heads were a little bit smaller than a lot of my art, even, and different things that people show. But they were completely, either they were robotic beings or they were completely covered, I think is what it was, in some sort of completely reflective material. So everything looked like it was the same. They looked like statues. That their eyes and the face, everything was like this mirror surface. And they moved towards me, and the words came out of my mouth. No effing way. This cannot be happening. This is weird. This is not happening. And I passed out, I guess. That's all I remember until I remember the feeling of falling a huge, like, like it's like the feeling when you're in an airplane and you hit an air pocket and it just, the, the whole thing dives, your stomach just like, I had this sensation, and I was in the living room floor of the house that I was living, curled up in a ball, and all I could see was blue. I couldn't see anything. Everything was blue, and I was yelling, "What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?" I, it was absolutely terrifying. I'm not going to say it wasn't terrifying. And my ex-husband at the time came running out and said I must have been sleepwalking or something. You know, I processed that as an odd dream for years. Yeah, I had a really weird dream about aliens one time and ended up in the wrong room. So then the big awakening, and I think I'm gonna stop this video here. I'm gonna stop it here, and I'm gonna do two parts, not five, not one, not five, but two. And what happens in the next period of years, I began really spiritually seeking again. I began seriously. I was in a very, very difficult place in a violent marriage, and I got out of it. And I began knocking on doors, and in 2012, the doors opened. Awareness happened, and so thus ends part one. I'm trying not to be silly and because I'm going to be horrified to watch this. But thank you for watching this, and I'm going to continue the next part of my story, which is going to be the last part, most likely. Um, I'm going to talk about what happened with the big epiphany and when conscious contact began happening, and when Ra came into my life, and the great teachers, and the knowledge of different starseed incarnations. And that will be my next story. Thank you for listening.